Welcome to the Wisdom of 1,000 Homes. I'd like to introduce my dad, Jay Lawler.
My name is Jay Lawler. I'm the president and owner of Showcase Builders Incorporated. I established the company in 1969, and since that time we've built over 1,000 homes.
I joined my dad in 1984, and in that time period till now, I've built over 600 homes with him. So knowledge saves money. Building mistakes are very expensive. We'd like to let you learn from some of the mistakes we've made. How many houses would you say a one-man operation could build in a year, and what might be some good strategies?
The one person who shouldn't overload himself in building. If he built 3 to 4 houses a year, that would be a load for him to do, especially if he's by himself, because he's got to take care of so many other details besides just building the home.
And that's assuming he's still subcontracting everything, not trying to do all the work himself.
Correct.
So what type of, this is kind of a bigger category and we'll ask questions out of it, but what type of planning and infrastructure does it take to build 30 houses a year? And I know you like to call them homes. You like to build homes, not houses.
That is correct.
Okay.
A home is something people live in.
Yeah.
A house is empty.
Yes. Okay. Well, first you've got to find the lots, and that can be tough. I mean, the finding lots in the old days might be different than how it is now.
That is very true. Before, developers would develop a subdivision, and maybe 5, 6, 7, or 8 builders would buy lots 1 or 2 at a time until it was all gone. And depending on how fast you could build them is how fast you'd buy the lots. So you didn't build up a lot of inventory. As the years went on, developers wanted to sell the whole subdivision to somebody or a group.
Yeah, and a lot of times it's tough for one builder to come in and buy a whole subdivision. So what we ended up doing was forming a builder group where we teamed up with 3 other builders, and we would go in and buy whole neighborhoods as a group and then just divide the lots amongst ourselves, build the neighborhood, and we'd knock them out. It was a little bit like tract building, except of course you have to get some of them would be custom built and some of them would be spec. But we were taking out whole neighborhoods at a time as a group, and it was a fun way to do business.
It was indeed, and it was very, very lucrative for all of us because all builders work together. There's no real secrets amongst builders. There's no magic formula to building a house. Everybody does it basically the same way.
Well, how do you finance and carry these lots and other overhead?
Well, first of all, you've got to have a fair amount of money at first, depending on your relationship with your bank. They'll loan sometimes up to 80% of the cost, but you've got to have 20%. And they take the finance for the lot at first, so you need to have some financial of your own finances to get the project going. And if I don't know what the figure is today, but it was just to get a building license, contractor's license. You had to have $45,000 worth of.
That is what it is today for a Class A contractor's license in Virginia. That is what it.
That's about the only thing that hadn't gone up.
Yeah, that's for sure. Okay, so how do you establish the credentials to borrow that kind of money? I know you've had your house on the line before.
Yes, you can. Some people, I can put up my house and get an equity line of credit on it, and use that money for building purposes. And as you sell, pay it back, and as you build and need more, you can borrow it back. That's one way. Of course, your main.
So it's like a line of credit.
Kind of like a line of credit. But that's one source. Your main source is going to be your bank
Okay.
and your relationship with your bank, and that's a very, very important part of building.
Okay.
Making sure you have the financial needs to build the house.
And then a way to extend that might be if you get a custom job, you can do a construction perm where the customers actually borrowing the money.
Yeah, there's two ways to build. You can have a custom home or a spec home. On a custom home, that's where you've written a contract with the person, and you're going to build a home to their wishes, and but they have to get what they call a construction permanent loan, and it's a construction loan that they have to finance as it goes along, and then it becomes a permanent loan when we finish the home. On a spec home, you finance it and you make all the decisions. Custom home, the customer makes all the decisions of the things they want in the home.
Okay, so
Important thing when you're building either, if you sold a spec home before it's finished, one thing that contractors can get in trouble with is the customer's asking for extras, and they want this and they want that that's not in the original contract. This is where you need to have a written addendum that establishes what they're asking for and what the price would be, and it's in your best interest to collect that money up front.
what are the components of your machine? I mean, dependable subs with backup subs, a staff that can process the build, great real estate agents, the ability to acquire lots. You know, how did your machine run?
Basically, we established subcontractors at the beginning. I had arrangements with the bank and established it with suppliers, and all of this is part of the building process. There's 5 very important elements to building a home. First of all, you've got to work with the banks, you've got to work with your subcontractors, you've got to work with the suppliers, you got to work with the realtors, and when it's sold, you got to work with the customer. So it takes a great deal of knowledge to know how to deal with different people. You'll deal differently with the bank than you would with a subcontractor.
So there's a lot of relationship building going on.
This is the most important thing you can do in building is have good relationships, especially with your suppliers and your subcontractors. Customers, number one, but in building, you need to have a good relationship with your subcontractors. A big mistake a lot of builders do is try to beat down a subcontractor on his price, trying to beat it down, and usually that he may get the job, he may still do the job, but he knows how to shortcut things so he didn't take that.
He still needs to make his money. His potatoes, the price of his potatoes go up too.
That's right. He's feeding the family.
Yeah.
So if you work with your subcontractor and try to work with him, and again, the important thing in all of this is when they finish, pay them. Always be ready to pay them. Don't try to make them extend their money. They spent all their money, and you can't rely on their money by not paying them quickly to finance your project.
Yeah, they don't have the ability to carry those costs like you should have it.
That's right. You just be able to make a financial arrangement so that you can carry the cost. Another important thing in building is discounts. It's very important. A lot of places give you 2% 10 discounts, and if you take those discounts, it's usually 2% 10 or net 30. So it's only 20 days difference between paying it 20 days earlier. But let's say you had a $15,000 framing materials job, and you pay that on the 10th. That's a $300 savings right there, just by paying it early. So always organize your payments so that you always take your discounts.
Yeah, if you're
Because-
building 30 homes a year, that
That can
adds
total
up to a lot of money.
to-
That's $9,000.
That can total up to a lot more than that because there's more things that.
That's
Get
just
discounts.
one item. That's just one framing
item.
package, one
Discount.
line item. You got the siding, you got the roofing, you got
trim materials, you got all the things that go in there, heating. People sometimes discount.
so those discounts could save you a
lighting
couple
people.
$1,000s on a large home.
Yeah, I can save thousands of dollars on it, and you take that over a period of a year, and depending on how many houses, that's almost the profit of a house.
Yeah.
They build it.
Yeah, I'll bet we've built houses where that was the only profit.
Yeah, yes, that could happen too.
Yes, indeed.
There's
Yes,
some ups
indeed.
and downs in this business.
So what kind of energy does it take to run a business like this?
You have to be dedicated to it, and you have to love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it is time consuming because you need to watch every facet of it.
Yeah.
Every turn, every corner, you need to be on top of it because you're dealing with a lot of money in a home, hundreds and thousands of dollars, and you need to know everything and keep up with everything
Okay.
and make sure that
Yeah.
you're getting full.
You were telling me before that you should always build your house on paper first.
Yes, you need to go get all of your bids in for every facet of the house, from the footings, concrete, framing materials, electrical subs, plumbing subs, heating subs.
Get them all to
Get everybody
get a written
and know
bid.
exactly how much materials you need, do all of your takeoffs, and get your pricing from the suppliers on everything that goes in the house. You cannot guess
Mhm.
that this may just cost me this.
Right.
It's the worst mistake you can make is trying to guesstimate something.
Yeah.
Know
Get a
what
firm
it is.
written
Know what
bid
it is
that-
before you start, and have it organized on a spreadsheet.
A written bid with their signature on it.
Written bids. Yes.
Yeah. Now, when you're building, if you're building the same house over and over, as we did, we had about 5 or 6 plans that we would build a lot, and we had just different customizing packages. So we knew for the most part, we didn't have to rebid every single house. We didn't have to do it 1,000 times for each time we built a house, because a lot of times we were building the same house over. Now over time, some of those prices would change, but we would update the spreadsheets.
Well, there's some prices don't change very much. Some like your trim materials, they don't change very often.
Mhm.
Your LVLs, they don't change very often.
Mhm.
Framing material, yes.
Very volatile, fluctuates a lot.
Yes.
But other things, that would remain the same. Like your framer typically had a bid that he was going to charge you the same thing, to build the same house over and over again. The cabinets, we had cabinet package unless somebody got upgraded doors or something like that, and then we had a customized price already factored in there on our spreadsheets. What is your philosophy of customer relationships and the 1-year punch list?
Most important. Very, very important.
You are really married to these people for a year after the
You
sale.
are indeed. And it's very important. During that period of time, there are going to be some things that are going to come up that need to be taken care of immediately, not at the end of the year. You want to establish a list of particular subs that have done work on your home, and have that. Give them phone numbers so that they can call. If they have trouble with their heating system, they can call directly and know exactly when it's being taken care of, rather than calling me. I call them, and I call them back and say Tuesday, and they say no, I can't do it till Thursday, and he can't do it on Thursday.
Yeah. Well,
You
as
don't
part
want to get in that type of back and forth situation.
yeah, you don't want to be
But it's
mediator.
also very important when you get that phone call, take care of it immediately. Don't let it slide for a while. The more problem you let slide, the more it festers, it gets worse and worse, and then a little problem becomes a very big problem.
And you'll spend more time with that customer than you would if you had just done it right the first time or fixed it right the first time. If it festers, it also adds to bad referral business. We achieved many extra sales because we had good referrals from our customers. Most important, you will spend much less time with them if you're nice to them than if you make things difficult for them.
That's another good point in of treating your subcontractors correctly and paying them. If you use the same contractors for the same work all the time, and you can do that, when it comes to something to fix, you know who did the work. And if they're doing a lot of work for you, they're going to take care of it immediately because they want to keep.
Sure. Well, and if the result of the punch list problem was their work, it is their obligation to fix it. How much do you think the building industry has changed since you started? And how did you keep up with the changes?
Well, basically, as far as building, not much. Hasn't changed a great deal.
Still build a house?
You still have to put a nail in the board and hook it to the...
Well, they do use nail guns these days.
Yeah, they do. So it's not a whole lot changed there. Some of the technology and things and some of the supplies you get are better than they used to be.
Yeah.
But
I guess those computers and spreadsheets are a little easier than that old calculator, though, aren't they?
Yeah, but it has nothing to do with building the house.
But it does with the way you run your business.
It's hammer and nailing.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about the difference between a custom home and a spec home.
I referred to it earlier a little bit. On a custom home, you're writing a contract before the home is built. And you're building it specifically for that customer. That customer makes all the decisions, what they want, head to toe. It's their home you're building, not your home, it's their home. And so whatever you get all the information of what they want before you start, and then price it accordingly.
What about an addendum to the contract?
Anytime you have an addendum, get it in writing, and there's two ways they can do it. They can add it to the mortgage, if that's approved by the bank, or they can pay you when it's put in. Okay, so let's say they've got a pre-approved package from the bank, and a lot of times the banks don't really want to mess with that, So in that case, you would ask them to pay for the addendum outside of the contract and probably at that time as opposed to after. The time of ordering.
What are some of the common mistakes you think builders will make?
The biggest common mistake most of them make is going into a neighborhood that say sells for $300,000. That's the price range in the
That's the upper end of the houses in that
That's the upper end of the things. And they'll go in and put too much stuff in a house, too many amenities and things, and then all of a sudden they've got to charge $325,000 for that house.
And that's going to be the slowest house to move in the neighborhood.
That's going to be the slowest moving house in the neighborhood. You have to realize that you're not building a house for yourself and the things that you think you need a house for you. You're building a house for the needs of the people in that price range.
Right. So, and then again, if you load a house too much, you might, if it's a neighborhood where, the houses are going for $260,000 to $300,000, and if you are constantly staying near the top end of that neighborhood, you're actually eliminating people that might be able to afford your house. If you have a base price of that house where they can add things to it to get to the upper price, well, if they don't, you might have somebody that's only got a pocketbook for $260,000. You don't want to eliminate those people from being able to get into that neighborhood. If you make a product that's too expensive for them, then you've missed a sale.
what you can do is price your home as a base price.
Mhm.
And that would be with very little amenities in it, just everything you need to live and you know, all the things you need. But you don't necessarily have to have granite countertops. You don't necessarily have to have marble vanity tops. You don't necessarily have hardwood floors. You don't necessarily have a lot of things.
Yeah.
But what you can do is have your base price, and then give a price to put these items in, and let them choose
What's
what to choose that stays within their budget.
Yeah, and what's important to them.
Yeah.
What are some common things that successful builders will do?
Successful builders usually have done all of their homework, all of the bidding.
They built that house on paper.
They built that house on paper. They know exactly what their costs are going to be. They know how much their subcontractor is going to cost them. They know how much their financing costs are going to be, and they run the job as quickly as they can.
So they're anticipating things instead of reacting to them.
That's right, and they've got it all planned out, and that is so necessary to know what you're doing before you start.
Yep. It's your money. All mistakes come out of your pocket.
That's correct.
How did you survive 2 major building crashes?
Boy, that's a good question. I don't know, but I did. Well, one time we had some homes up, spec homes up, and with the crash, nobody was going to buy them. The interest rates were 17 to 23%, and nobody was buying homes. And I went to my bank that I was getting the money from, and I said, I'm not going to be able to continue to pay that kind of interest in anything. I said, but I can rent these homes, and that'll be enough income from the rental. And I said, you can rent homes easier right now because nobody can afford to build a house. He said, we can rent the homes, and the rent money will keep up the interest on the loan. And they agreed, and that got around one hurdle.
Yep, so you were basically renting and giving them the option to buy in the long run when interest rates improves.
Right.
Okay, that was a great strategy. Those were the Carter years.
Yeah. And it's anytime you can do that, you have to work with your bank. That's why it's always good to have a good relationship with your bank again.
Yeah.
It's so important in this business to have good relationships with everybody you're working with.
And that's kind of what you did the second time too. You really restructured things with the bank, and in any house that sat, you ended up putting renters in.
That paid the interest on the financing, and as people bought the houses, then paid off that note.
Well, I watched many builder friends not survive those building crashes, and I watched you sweat it out, and I learned what a good business and smart businessman you were through that process.
Well, you said several builders didn't make it. The actual statistics, I think, this is what I've heard, I can't verify it, but 75% of the builders that were here before this last crash are not here anymore.
Yeah.
Only 25% of the builders survived it.
Yeah.
So that's not.
And surviving it doesn't necessarily mean
thriving.
That came out well. Thriving.
You did survive.
Yeah.
They're just 75% of them are just not there anymore.
Well, I want to thank you for having this interview with us. And
well, one last thing I'd like to offer to a builder, a slow, quick nickel is much better than a slow dime. Quick nickel is better than a slow dime. Price your home right. If it sells, you'll get more turnover. The more times you can turn your money over a year, the difference in lowering your price to get it in a good sellable price range, that makes it sell fast. You will make up in your turnover of how many, if you can turn an extra home or extra 2 homes a year, because your overhead costs stay the same.
So you're really getting a higher percent of profit
Overhead costs.
out of those extra few
A
homes.
lot of things you have to remember in your overhead cost is you've got so much stuff there that the vehicle that you're using, the gas,
Mhm.
your insurance, your permits, proffers, all this thing, hooking up the water and sewer line, all these things are expensive, and you have to know that. And a lot of these things are in overhead, not into the price of the house.
Mhm.
And that stays with you every month whether you build or you don't build.
Mhm.
But once you've built enough to where you've made enough money that your overhead costs are paid for the year,
Mhm.
then that's when the builder starts really making some additional money. So a slow nickel is better than
Words of wisdom.
A fast nickel is
Yeah.
better than a slow down.
Yes, it is. Words of wisdom from the man who has built 1,000 homes. Thank you, Dan.
Thank you, son.